What's going on, everybody? This is my January wrap up, I guess. January was a great month for me. I read 10 books, which is way out of the normal, though February might be ramping up the same because right now, my wife and I are reading a book a day in the month of February, so they're shorter, some longer. I'm kind of trying to sprinkle a few things in, but that's not what this video is about. So, jumping right into it, like I said, I read 10 books in the month of January, and I will just kind of read them off, and if I can remember anything about them, tell you about them. But the first one I read for the month was Extreme Medical Services by Jamie Davis. This is an urban fantasy of, we've got our main character, I cannot remember his name, but he has just gone out of EMT school or EMS school, and pretty much top of his class, gets placed into a special EMS location to respond to events. And so all of his patients are a little bit on the different side. If you read urban fantasy, you know, but as we're looking at like vampires, werewolves, zombies, just kind of any kind of like weird creature. I didn't think I was going to like it. I gave it a 3.75, which might seem low to some, high to some. I don't know. It depends on, like, I know some people consider 3 bad, but I had fun with it, and I'm going to keep reading the series. So that was the first one I read for the month. Second book was Salem's Lot, and I've had this on my TBR for a long time. Finally broke down, and I listened to it. And I enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.75. I think if I'm going to go back through, probably not this year, but next year, and read it. But I think it's one of those that if I read the words on the page, I'm going to have a much better experience with it. So I gave it a 3.75. I liked it just fine. I thought it was a good story, but I need to actually read the words on the pages in an ebook or on a physical book. But not bad. Stephen King, mostly love all Stephen King books I read, so this one ranked a little bit lower for me. Next up was Wayward from the Wayward Pines trilogy. This is book 2 in Blake Crouch's Wayward Pines trilogy. I gave this a 5. I loved Pines. Pines was my first Blake Crouch book that I read last year, and then I read Dark Matter. I've seen the Wayward Pines TV show, which I loved when it came out. I didn't even know it was based off of a book series when I watched the show. But book 2, you know, some people tend to hate on it, and I thought it was a great continuation of the story. Like, you're not going to have that same impact that you have in Pines when you're finding out about Wayward Pines. So this is kind of a continuation and a struggle of our main protagonist, Ethan, who isn't super likable. Some people say he is. Most people agree that he is not a likable character. But I love reading his story, and just like, again, a great continuation of the series. Next book for the month was Nothing Tastes as Good from Luke Dumas. This was an arc that I received from NetGalley, and I gave it a 3.25. I thought it was a fine book. It had a really gross scene in it, which that's honestly not the part that marked it down. I just found all the characters unlikable and annoying. Again, I don't even remember any of their names, but I have a bad memory when it comes to, like, when I read things, especially after it's been a month since I've read it, because I finished this about midway through January. But basically, you're following with Nothing Tastes as Good. You've got our main protagonist is a very obese, well, I shouldn't say very obese man, because he starts off skinnier than I am, but apparently he doesn't hold his weight well, and he's struggling. He's got some depression, but like, his friend is also one of those like healthy at any size, fat positive people who's also a very large person, and those kind of people annoy me to begin with, coming from someone who is got my training, got my education is in fitness, even though you can't tell with how fat I am. But I used to be in great shape, and knowing like the health consequences of being overweight, being at my size, um, it's one of those things that just really annoy me. But I didn't like any of the characters in this book, and usually that's not a deterrent for me. Usually I'm like, ah, fine, I don't need to like the characters. But I found so many of them just so annoying. And the main concept of this being like a cannibalism book, there was practically none. There was a little bit, but it focused so much on like this character losing weight, getting in this program for a trial for a weight loss drug, that it just kind of for me it took away. I actually rated it higher than I think it deserves. At this point, like thinking back at the time, I was like, yeah, 3.25. I think I'm confident with that. I'd probably bring it down to either a 3 or a 2.75 at this point. Um, it wasn't horrible. It just wasn't for me. I could see other people really being into this, but just was not for me. Next, I read We Used to Live Here from Marcus Clearer. I don't know how to say the name, but anyways, this book was fantastic. I actually um, read this because I got approved for The Caretaker by the same author, and I had heard that they kind of take place in the same universe. It wasn't a sequel, but it's kind of the same universe, so I wanted to kind of get a feel for that before jumping in. And We Used to Live Here is a creepy story. Almost, I don't want to say it's a creepy haunted house story, but it kind of is. But we start off with uh, this family just randomly coming to this house during a snowstorm, and the dad saying, "Hey, I used to live here. I wanted to bring my family up here so we tour the kids around, show them where I grew up at." And it starts off feeling normal, but our main character, she starts getting paranoid. Which again, you've let strangers in your house, and now they're snowed in, and there's a lot of twists and turns. And I'm actually getting this physically. I read it on ebook, but there's like Morse code on some of the pages at the end of some of the chapters, and it's kind of like a little bit mixed media too, because you've got these articles and these police reports throughout the whole book as well. Um, but there's like codes and puzzles throughout the book. So I'm getting the physical one because I actually want to be able to go back through and make notes, and which I'm not that kind of person, but since it's kind of a puzzle book, I was like, oh, I want to do that. So I gave this a 5. It was phenomenal to me, a must read. Um, I was so excited to get to The Caretaker, which I also finished in January, and I'll get to that in a minute. Uh, Next, I read The Mermaid from Christina Henry. This is kind of like a retelling of The Little Mermaid in a way. Um, I've actually been reading this for a while. I started it a couple years ago and then soft DNF'd because I wasn't really into reading when I picked it up. I wasn't enjoying a lot. Like I was enjoying some stuff, but I just wasn't. I was reading like 4 books a year, and this one just wasn't clicking with me because the chapters are really long. A long chapter really takes me out of my experience. But The Mermaid, we're following a mermaid uh, in her journey and her decision to live amongst the humans because she has fallen in love, um, and kind of going into her future where the love of her life, something happens and she ends up finding herself in New York, uh, working working in the entertainment business, if you will. I don't want to give too much away. I did enjoy it after I finally finished it. I gave it a 3.25, which again might seem kind of low. Um, it wasn't what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting horror because I'd heard Christina Henry did a lot of like horror retellings, um, and that's on me. But like I just didn't hit that what I was really looking for. But it was enjoyable. I did like it. I will reread it at some point. Next up is The Last Town by Blake Crouch. That's Wayward Pines Book 3, the final in the trilogy. I gave this a 4.25. Um, I really enjoyed it. I don't think it hit as well as Wayward, um, but this is the end. We're seeing a lot of growth from Ethan. We're seeing how this whole family changes. So it's really entertaining. I really enjoyed it. So that's kind of how that is. Next up, I have Chalupa Cabra Y2K. This is from V.S. Lawrence. I gave this a 4.5. Short little novella, 152 pages. It's stupid, but it's really fun. Essentially, you have these people that work at a fast food taco place, and they create this monstrosity because they're going to be starting to serve some chalupas, and they kind of go crazy and dip it into an old vat of grease in a faulty fry machine, and all hell breaks loose. If you want something fun, I highly recommend Chalupa Cabra Y2K. I had a really good time. It's a quick read, and again, it's just really fun. It's dumb, but it's fun. And V.S. Lawrence is one of those that's becoming more of a, I want to get her next book. I want to read it. She wrote 80s Ghost, phenomenal. I love that. So I really like this, and I've got to cut another one of her books up on my TBR, hopefully soon. Next up, Guillotine from Delia Dawson. I gave this a 3.5. It was fine. It's the menu meets Ready or Not in book. We're following our main protagonist. She's kind of like a fashion designer. She's down on her luck that no one's hiring because she doesn't really have real world experience. And she takes advantage of some opportunities to meet the main owner of a publisher of a magazine. And then things get crazy when she's isolated from the rest of the main world with this family. Like I said, 3.5, it was fine. I enjoyed it. Not I'm going to rush to read more of Delilah's work. But I might, because she's written some Star Wars stuff, so I might check out some of that, maybe see if I enjoy that more. And then finally, The Caretaker. Last book, I read it a couple days before the end of January, or finished it. Marcus Clywer, 5.5 stars across the board. Interesting read. Creepy, just like We Used to Live Here. In this instance, our main character, she answers a Craigslist ad for being like caretaker for this lady's husband. Goes through the interview, gets it, and then finds out that it's not really taking care of this lady's husband, but it's more taking care of the property. And there's a very set amount of work, set steps, certain things you've got to do in certain orders to manage this property, or the property might start doing some things, and you've got these rules, you've got these rights that you have to follow. And I loved it. I blasted through this in like 2 days. A lot of these I actually read through really quick, but like Caretaker, I blasted through in 2 days. Usually 320 pages takes me 4-5 days to read. I'm a slow reader. I could not put The Caretaker down. So highly recommend. It's not out yet. This was another arc from NetGalley, but I love this. I'm going to be getting this physically when it comes out. I try to keep my physical books. I'm trying to get more to where I'm only buying ones that I've read that I really like and want to add to my collection if I've had them in ebook. This is one I will be having a nice copy at the house. So that is what I read in January. Like I said, February is shaping up to be really good. So we'll kind of see what happens. But yeah, that was my January wrap up. I'm really bad at doing these still, so bear with me. And hopefully this wasn't too long, but thanks for checking out the video. I'd love to know what you read in January and what you loved. Any of these books that I read or the ones that you hated or you liked, or you feel like I was kind of on the same level as you, I'd love to know. Let's have a conversation down below in the comments, and we will catch you in the next video.